Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with great recordings you didn't know existed. This is a very, very unusual, and for some connoisseurs, a special recording. It's Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, but a Beethoven Fifth that is slow and shockingly deliberate in a way that you wouldn't believe possible, especially coming from this conductor. One of you, in a very perspicacious comment, asked me, what are the limits of interpretive greatness in a work like Beethoven's Fifth that everybody does? And the range of interpretation, not surprisingly, is really quite wide. It can be fast, it can be slow, it can be, emphasize different things. All kinds of interesting stuff happens. But this one was a shocker. It came as a shocker to me, because when I talk about slow Beethoven, we are going to say, oh gosh, it's got to be Klemperer. I mean, slow normative Beethoven, not like Celibidache's weirdness. There's always the crazies. But when we're talking about within the parameters of interpretive normalcy, Klemperer usually is in the slow department. Then you've got all the metronome following people in the quick department. Lots of those. It's actually much harder to be in the slower department because you have time. You have time, and that means you have to characterize the music much more abundantly in order to fill that time with ear-catching stuff. But this is not Klemperer. It's not Klemperer at all. It's Ferenc Fricsay, who at the very end of his life, this is 1962, with the Berlin Philharmonic, recorded a Beethoven Fifth. Now, Fricsay is beloved and very, very well known, and he made some reference recordings in Beethoven, you know which ones, and he almost did a complete Beethoven cycle. But this fifth is amazing, and the timings tell it all. Let me just tell you. The first movement, 9 minutes and 10 seconds. Klemperer was rarely much more than 8, even in his final phase. This slow movement, oh my God. Klemperer usually timed in around 11, which was excruciatingly slow for some people. 13 minutes and 18 seconds. And then you've got the scherzo, and the finale is 9.5 minutes without the repeat. Of course not. This is deliberate, especially the slow movement, which is, remember, it's marked andante con moto, with movement. And you can't say that this is andante con moto. You just can't. The interesting thing about it, though, is that, Fricsay was such a tremendous musician, even if he was ill, which he was when he made this. But I don't chalk it up to illness. There's a joy in sonority here, which is not about sickness. It's a different thing, because when you listen to it, and if you can listen to it and banish thoughts of those period instrument people, you will hear things that you have never heard before. Of course, I just did a video about Antal Dorati's Beethoven Fifth with its fabulous bass lines that you can really hear, the transparency. There's some of that here too. Not as much as Dorati, but yes, you hear those bass lines, and you must. And you have time. You have time to savor them. The interesting thing about that excruciatingly slow andante con moto is that the nature of the variations is such that they're variations by diminution. In other words, the note values get smaller, which means the variations get faster. Remember how the end of the movement goes? How it goes somewhere after the first fanfare thing. So the music seems to speed up from its unbelievably leisurely opening. And it's very interesting to hear it that way, actually. The orchestra is totally committed to the cause. The scherzo is really spooky. It's not 6 and a bit minutes. It's not ridiculously slow, but it's deliberate, and it's creepy. And the finale is wonderfully triumphant and weighty and heroic. And it it balances what has come before. It really does. The whole performance is an integral thing. It has the right balance, the right internal balances between sections. It's all there. It's just really, really slow. And for that reason, really interesting. I do think it's a great performance in its way. Do I think it's one of the greatest recordings ever? Well, no, I don't. I don't, because it really is very, very idiosyncratic in that respect. But it's worth hearing. And in answer to the question, which was a perfectly valid one about what are the interpretive parameters, in great recordings or recordings by great artists of the major works that get recorded over and over again, this is the example I would point to as one of the boundary performances, one of the extremes of speed and other things. But this is definitely one of them, because you cannot argue that Fricsay is not a master conductor when listening to this performance, or that the orchestra is not playing wonderfully. You can't. And it's in that Fricsay box. If you've heard it, you can find it. I'm sure it'll be easy for you to find. So if you really want to get a sense of what the symphony can do in the hands of the best performers, and as a function of very, very fine performances, whether you call it the greatest ever or not, that's a separate thing. But just as part of that spectrum, the spectrum of greatness, if you want to call it, I recommend that you listen to Fricsay with the Berlin Philharmonic on Deutsche Grammophon, and give it some really, really serious consideration. Do not come back with the comments and just say, oh, it's just too slow. It's blah, blah, blah. We know it's slow, and nobody cares whether you think it's too slow or not. Listen to it for what it is, and see if it doesn't teach you something, or excite you in some way, or somehow touch you in a way that no other performance has. It did me, and it may well do for you. It may not. Either way, it's legitimate. But give it a listen, because we have to keep on listening. So take care, friends, and thanks so much for joining me.